Welcome to Markets Now. I'm Michelle Rook along with Jim McCormick, agmarket.net. We've got most of the grains leaning to the plus side, except for a few of the wheat contracts, and some of the new crop contracts in corn are starting to slip just a little bit here as well after the report over. And livestock, cattle are higher, hogs are lower. Let's break down the report a little bit here, Jim. First of all, let's start off with quarterly stocks, because honestly, I know acreage usually gets more of the fanfare and the fireworks, but actually that's where the bullish surprises came. Quarterly stocks for both corn and soybeans were pretty bullish, weren't they?
They were. Corn stocks came in roughly what, Michelle, about 79 million less than the average trade guess. That would suggest that we probably fed more livestock, more corn over the last quarter than what the trade was thinking. So it's definitely a little bit positive because the balance sheet was already very tight before this number came out. So it's just going to continue to snug it up. The bean surprise, the big revision downward on those bean quarterly stocks was probably the surprise of the report, because traditionally we have a better handle of where the bean ending stocks are, because we know what we crush, we know what we export, and that tends to be the two big factors. So with this revision down in the quarterly grain stock, I would argue that maybe last year's crop may be a little bit smaller than people were thinking.
No doubt. And so what we're seeing right now is in both corn and soybeans, forward spreads are working. We're back above the $15 mark here on May soybeans. We're above the 100-day moving average. Does this kind of reset the trade now, do you think?
I think it definitely did. I mean, right now, if you are an end user, you're going to try to get these beans out of the producer's hands. It's just going to be that much more tougher. There's less beans to force out of the producer's hands. And, the weather is still, not conducive for planting at the moment. So I would expect the bull spreads in the beans to continue to work, as well as the corn, to be quite honest.
You bet. And of course, we've had some export business now with China to add on top of that, and exports are improving. So maybe we'll continue to see that number tighten down here. And when you look at the ending stocks number and put these numbers in, you're looking at an under 200 million bushel ending stocks figure probably for soybeans now, aren't you, Jim?
I would guess right now, doing the rough calculations, that was probably where they're going to put it, unless they start cutting export demand. And that's going to be a little bit challenging. The reality is, if you want to, at this point, Michelle, if you want to buy for value, you need to buy South America beans. Brazil is selling beans a whole heck of a lot cheaper than we are. But on the other hand, if you need them expediently, promptness, you're going to buy them from the U.S. because you're talking shipping delays as much as 30 days. Now, the one wild card that could end up changing this balance sheet dramatically. So if you're a producer out there, you don't get too ragingly bullish, is we could start importing beans from Brazil aggressively. Right now, we've heard a couple cargoes of beans being sold into the Southeast to feed that chicken market. But, if the market gets too tight, it is not unheard of for us to start importing beans right up the Mississippi River to keep our crushers going. So it's something that we'll probably be watching for over the next couple months.
You bet. Okay, let's move over to acreage or prospective plantings. 92 million acres on corn. That's up 3.42 million acres from last year. Soybeans, 87.5. That's almost flush with the last year. So what do you think? Why did we see the tip in acres here? Was it crop insurance prices? Was it corn soybean price ratio? What?
Well, right now, I think the corn acreage number came in here aggressively because that's where the money is. When you talk to a lot of producers all winter long, at least all our clients said, hey, that is where I'm going to plant. And the money says to plant the corn. So they did it. The wheat, we didn't see the spring wheat. Interesting. The Durham wheat number was up a little bit more than we thought. And that definitely was more of an insurance play at this point in time. But now the real debate, I think, when it's all said and done, Michelle, is, this is the assumptions people gave us on early weeks of March. But the reality is, the game has changed dramatically weather-wise. The Midwest is relatively wet. We've got a big storm system coming through this afternoon. We've got another big storm system coming in next week. But more importantly, the Northern Plains continue to deal with a ton of snow. And, our clients up there aren't talking, if there'll be prevent plant, it's how many acres will be prevent planted. So, this acreage number is far from settled, and you'll see a lot of debate over the next, 30, 60, 90 days on what actually gets planted.
Yeah, and that was going to be my follow-up to you, because most of the corn acre increase came in the Dakotas and Minnesota, and if they get that planted, that's really up for debate yet. You mentioned the wheat acres, so let's dive into wheat right now. All wheat acres up to 49.9 million acres. That was above what the trade had guessed, above what USDA had in the Ag Outlook Forum. Where did those acres come from again? Break that down.
For the most part, they came in, other spring wheat was down a shade below the average guess, but it was up a little bit. Not other. The other was down a little bit from the trade guess, but the Durham number was up quite a bit from what people were thinking. And that's kind of where the number came from. These wheat acres are going to shift around too. As we get further north, the question is, will they be able to get that wheat planted in the north? And then the reality is, you talk to customers down in the southern plains, Kansas, areas like that, they are still dealing with that drought. I talked to a client of mine earlier today that was saying, they had 40, 50 mile an hour winds with 5% moisture. So, the reality is we're probably going to see some wheat acres torn up simply because as they come out of dormancy, it's just not going to be there. So just like the corn and bean acres, the wheat acres are going to be up for debate as well.
Yeah, I wondered how many of those acres were going to get abandoned. And like you say, when you look up at the northern plains areas, obviously lots of snow there. And to get all of that spring wheat planted, 10.6 million acres is what they're talking on other spring wheat. Durham, I think, was about 1.67 to get all that planted is going to be, or 1.78, I'm sorry, on Durham. That's going to be a tough lift. So price-wise, the market reactions that you're seeing here today, where do you think we need to be as we go forward? What is your marketing advice today off of this?
Well, right now, I think when it comes down to it, Michelle, I think if you're a producer, you just got to recalibrate your break evens and all that. I mean, the reality is, the bean market had broken quite hard. It's now giving people a better shot to sell some beans. You're back over 15 in the old crop. And the same thing on corn. Corn market broke hard. I think you will catch a bid in the corn market, at least temporarily, as we debate how many acres of corn are going to get planted. But the fact of the matter is the economies of the world are still softening pretty much. If Brazil ends up with a bigger than normal corn crop, as their safrinha crop could possibly be, they've already got a big bean crop. The reality is, as a producer, you need to make sure you are profitable this year. That is our argument here at Ag Market. If you got a chance to lock in profits, don't be afraid to do it. Because if we do manage to get, even the corn acres are down 1 million or the bean acres are plus or minus 1 million, if we end up over trend line yields, the odds are prices are going to be a lot lower in the fall than they currently are.
And how much different do you think these numbers are going to look come June 30th?
I'm guessing we'll lose a couple million acres. I think we'll lose 1 or 2 million acres just outright to prevent plant, but I would guess the corn acres could be down 1 or 2 million on top of it, and the bean acres may be up a little bit when it's all said and done.
Okay, so Mother Nature is going to have the final say, is what you're saying.
No doubt about it. I think right now she is going to have a say. Like I said, that you made a point. Northern Plains, I've got clients say they got 3 feet of snow sitting on their fields right now. They're talking mid-May before they can get in, and we'll see if what happens. I think the real risk now is we get a real quick warm up, and then you got to deal with a lot of flooding potential as well. So it looks like the odds of early spring have evaporated. Now can we get a normal spring, or are we going to end up being a late spring, which is looking more and more likely at the moment?
Okay. Well, a lot of this story yet to be written, that's for sure. All right. Thanks for joining us with that market update and report analysis. Jim McCormick with agmarket.net and Markets Now.